Welcome to Callings from Christ. I'm Christy, and I want to take a quick moment before we get started to just thank everyone who's subscribed, and anyone who is new, please subscribe and help share the word. Another thank you to my pastor and the congregation here at Trinity Lutheran and my guests. And speaking of guests, I have Miss Kelly here with me today.
Hi, Christy. It's so good to be here. I'm just so excited. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I was really excited. Oh, thank you to Becky as well.
Yes,
I really wanted to thank Becky
our
Kessler.
connection.
She's awesome. Really, truly, she's just been a blessing. But thank you. I know it's a little bit of a drive for you, so I do appreciate you coming out.
Beautiful day to drive to be here. So
yes, it is.
Yeah.
I haven't seen many clouds, so it looks pretty clear out there. But you know that you are a Christian.
Yeah.
And a wife and mother of two.
Mm-hmm.
And you work at Cedar Creek Church.
Yep, I do. Yeah.
Perfect. So you're a perfect guest to come on here. And when Becky was like, I have a perfect guest, I'm like, yes, you do. You didn't lie. It's perfect. So I love sharing those kinds of stories and people that are working in the church because they have a unique aspect on life. So I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So what I like to start with is kind of just a story about, you know, a little bit of your upbringing, if faith was part of your childhood, and then how you came to Christ more so as an adult.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Right.
So yeah, I was not actually raised in the church.
Okay.
My immediate family, my mom and my dad, didn't raise me in the faith. And really, I don't recall my extended family, other than my one aunt and uncle really being believers. Now, as time's gone on, I've noticed a shift there a little bit, but I don't really know when all of that happened, or if it was, they were believers and I just didn't know it. But I went to church because I had friends that went to Sunday school. And so like I would go along with my friends, like it was just a thing we did. I don't know, we were bored back in the 70s or I don't know what, but as far as like consistent, church attendance, my family did not attend. And so I didn't come to faith until college. And looking back, I do see God like nudging me a couple of times. And then, different people I was dating would take me to church or something like that. So I saw that pursuit as I looked back. But it wasn't until I met the man who's now my husband, and we were having a conversation, and he said to me, well, my faith is very important to me. And just the way he said it, I kind of had this like, I better find more out about this if I want to date this guy. Like it was obviously clearly an important part of his life. And so I did. I mean, that sort of started the journey there. And I got baptized a year or so later. And then, we ended up getting married and that type of thing. So that was sort of the start of the journey. But that wasn't until I was, in college. So,
wow.
Yeah.
I always find that interesting. People telling me about their now spouses who kind of push them into their faith. And now it's like, they're just completely like in awe of Christ and just like learning as much as they can. Yes. I think it's really cool because a couple of people have told me, and I've seen this online as well, the little triangle symbolism of like the spouses are at the bottom corners and then Christ at the top.
Yeah.
And as they grow closer to God, they're growing closer together.
Yeah.
And I think that's so true and so beautiful because as you get closer to God, you're going to want to, obey everything and
absolutely.
And that's going to
absolutely. And
I
think
your relationship
in your relationship, right. And it's going to strengthen your marriage. And, if you have children, that it gives you, that foundation for raising your kids as well. And so, it was, one of those things where now, if you looked at me then, you would look at my journey and be like, there's no way that I would end up here. Like I would, with the journey that God has taken me on, it's like, I could never have predicted that in my life. But my husband, on the other hand, he's a pastor's kid. And there are so many pastors in his family. It's kind of crazy. So I was stepping from a family that like did not go to church at all to a family that like, that's what their life revolved around. And not just his family, but like his aunts and his uncles and his cousins and, and now his brother's a pastor and our brother-in-law is a pastor. And it's just, it's really interesting. So I think when I counted, he has like 10 pastors in his family.
Wow.
Yeah. And Christian teachers as well. And so like, it's kind of
Really
crazy.
involved. Wow. That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah. So
Wow. That's like, that's
I know
amazing. That is completely different.
it
Just
is
jumping from
completely
that to
different.
that.
It was just such a different switch.
Did you find it to be more like, I don't want to be negative towards one side or the other, but did you find it to be more like loving, genuine, like good spirited, more helpful? And did you find like a difference in the way they would like behave and treat each other, or?
Interesting. Yeah. I think looking back on it now, yes, I was really intimidated when I stepped into the family. I felt very much like I didn't know anything. I mean, so I didn't have any familiarity with Bible. I didn't, and that's just kind of the language they spoke in. So
Right.
stepping in, I'm sure I was very immature in a lot of ways. Right. And so I was pretty intimidated. Like, they would sit down and I would sit down and just start eating. And then they'd be like praying. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not supposed to eat. I'm supposed to pray first, like, so it was a cultural shock for me. But over time, yes, just, I think just the kindness of the family. We all get along. I mean, it's kind of amazing. And not that we don't get along in my family. That's not the point. But I know how unique that is and unusual that is. And so, yes, I think, just that the peace and the priority.
Peace and joy, something you get from God alone.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
And just their outlook on life and that type of thing was different. So
that life and even death, really.
Yes, for sure. Yes. It's that has been really, really different as I navigated the death of both of my parents, who I think were believers at the end, and had that, just that glimmer where it's like, okay, well, God, you can do things with a mustard seed. You know what I mean? But looking at how they approached that on my side of the family, as opposed to the peace I sense from my in-laws. Praise God, they're still with us and that type of thing. But that was, even my daughter noticed that difference in how they led their lives and that type of thing.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
That's strong. Do you have any, I like to think of them as God winks, or maybe you have like a story of like, oh, God saved me from that situation, or something you've heard. Is there anything that sticks out to you that you would think other people would benefit from?
That's an interesting question. God, I think, yes, I have had the God winks. I've had the nudges. I guess I would say they're nudges multiple times in my journey. I think one of the first ones was when we were in Virginia and we just had our daughter, and we were thinking like, how are we going to raise her? I mean, I was sent through public school and my husband was sent through parochial school, right? So two totally different things. And by that time my faith was growing. It was really having my daughter was a catalyst in that I hadn't been raised, and now I'm trying to raise this child in a Christian way. And I'm like, how do we do this? And so in a lot of ways, God used that as a catalyst to grow my own faith. But I was like, okay, we have to figure out what we're going to do. And at the time, parochial school was not necessarily in the budget. And so we were kind of reviewing, there was a whole spread in the newspaper, and I got this nudge of, you're going to homeschool her, which it had never crossed my mind previously. And I'm like, I'm gonna what now? And so we said, okay. I mean, I talked about it with my husband, obviously, and we were like, well, I mean, preschool, we can homeschool preschool. I was teaching college at the time, so I figured I could probably do preschool. And so that's just where we started, was being a homeschool family, and we'll homeschool preschool. And then that began, that just kept going. And for my daughter, it took her all the way through. We homeschooled all of it through graduation. So, so I think that was, a nudge that I had. And that's normally how God has worked with me. I mentioned that I got saved when I was in college, and then it's kind of been a slow burn for me. Like I always am so in awe of those people who are like, on fire for Jesus, like right away, because that I didn't have one of those like moments. And it's always just been kind of this slow, consistent, constant growth. And so, I look at my story and I'm like, well, that's not actually that exciting. Like, but when I look at where he's taken me over the years, as I mentioned earlier, it's like, if you'd asked me at 17, before I'd come to know the Lord, to where I am now and now I'm on staff at a church. I've run a Christian college. I've like, what, I would never have planned that for my life. And it's through a series of nudges, and just being open and saying, I can't believe why you're choosing me to do this, Lord, but okay, and just being obedient in that way.
Right.
So,
yeah. I think a lot of people, when they hear from God or have a nudge, they're always like, why are you choosing me to do this? And I feel like fear plays a big part in that too.
Oh, for sure.
But I mean, why wouldn't you? The guest I just had on kept saying to me, God was chasing after you. Like he loved you. So he was chasing after you, the creator of the universe.
Right.
And you think about how huge that is. And it's like, it bring you to tears if you think about it too much, but I don't know, that's beautiful. But I want to go back to something you just said. You also run a school?
I did. Yes.
You did.
Yes. So, I was president of Revere Bible College. And God just took me out of that role. So, but that was one of those things that it's like, he kind of dropped it in my lap and I'm like, oh, okay, Lord, if you think so, obviously I sought wise counsel on that as well, but, and so, I was there for a time and, almost as rapidly, he's like, and your time here is done. And I'm like, wait, what? Oh, okay. All right. Well, I guess my time here is done. And, again, you go through you fast and you pray and you seek wise counsel and you're like, yep, my time here is done. All right, Lord, I'm not sure what you're doing, but I will be obedient in that. And so, it's been a very interesting journey, but that was such a privilege in my life to be able to do that and to touch the lives of those students who are very dear. And the faculty was just an amazing team there. And so it was an incredible honor to be able to be there. And, I'm excited to have had the chance to have done that. And I'm excited to see where God takes me next. So,
that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I always wonder what that's like. Because I had my pastor on here. I was like, anytime someone's telling me a story, I always picture myself in that position and being in their shoes. And it's so interesting to me. Like, I'm very curious to see what that is like. It's almost like, you shadow people for a job. It's like, I want to go and shadow people just to see what this is like. It's so interesting. I would go on to another topic, but do you want to take a quick break?
Sure. Okay. Being okay that it's a journey. I think that sometimes people think I have to have this all together right away.
Yeah.
And that if they don't, they feel frustrated. I mean, my personal heart is to grow people. So, I guess I'm compassionate in that regard to the people that are like trying to learn, but yeah.
I like that.
Be patient.
Yeah. Cause that's been a part of mine. It is recording, but
you can edit it out. Yeah.
As I guess, like, as I was growing closer to God, I was also feeling like pushed from some people who are, Christians. And that's sad because it made me feel like I was insignificant because I didn't know enough. And I just know if my cousin is starting to become more involved in this as well. And I can see him, and he's texting me all the time now. Like, I just got a new Bible and I did this and this happened to me. And he's just like really on fire, as you said. And I'm like loving every second of it because I know he has some things he's struggling with, but he's in the journey and I don't want to push him or make him feel like, oh, you're not where you need to be and yada, yada.
Yeah. I think you can land with, as you've been in the faith for a while, you can have some preconceived notions of where people need to be and when they need to be there. And I think it's really important to remember that yes, they should be challenged to grow, but
Mm-hmm.
God's also going to take them at their own pace,
Mm-hmm.
and their journey isn't going to look like your journey, and your journey isn't going to look like their journey.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of saying, oh, you need to be doing this or you need to be doing that right now, like,
Mm-hmm.
how can I help you take another step? How can I help you grow
I
in
like
that
that.
faith? And that's gonna, the enemy attacks in different ways for different people. So, again, the journey is just not going to be the same. That what they're dealing with, what they need to overcome, may be
Mm-hmm.
different than what you struggled with.
Right.
And so I think, figuring out where they're at, and what's one little step that they need to
Mm-hmm.
take. And I think the other piece is that, what we think that we ourselves, as we're on the journey, think, oh, a step is something really big. Like, I go from, not knowing my Bible to being able to spout off all these verses. Well, no, a step may be you actually think about going to scripture for something when before you try to solve the problem on your own, or
Mm-hmm.
it can be the littlest thing, and that is just that 1 inch closer to the Lord. That I think we always think that it has to be dramatic.
Yeah.
Or maybe I did, maybe it's just me, but I didn't always appreciate the small steps that I was taking until I looked back and went, oh wow, there was tremendous growth. And there were times too when I was really stubborn and didn't grow,
Yeah.
but certainly the times that I grew the most was when I said, okay, yes, Lord, I will do this. And it doesn't have to be a big thing.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
does
I
that make
like that.
sense?
Yeah. It's like baby steps. I
Baby
mean,
steps.
it's kind of reminds me like when I went to college. I was sick when I was 18, so I didn't go to college right away. And then when I went back, I was like, I really don't want to do this, but I know I should. And so it was just baby steps. And I was like, don't think too much into it.
Right.
Do little things at a time. And then before I knew it, I was graduating with honors and won an outstanding graduate award. And I'm like, whoa,
Wow. Yeah.
how did I do this?
Well, and I think, I think we can get in that as just in humans in general, that we have to make all these big drastic changes. And when we look at what Jesus says and does, he doesn't make you go from, point A to point S. It's normally just A to B, right? Stand up, pick up your mat and walk. It's like little things that he asks us to do. And in that same way, like, I think we make it too complicated, that it has to be this big change, when really it's just, okay, you're on the ground, stand up. Okay, now pick up your mat. Okay, now walk, if we're using the words of Jesus here. And so remembering those small steps. And so I was reminded of that. I actually got called back to school myself, and it's an integrative health and Christian integrative health program. And, we're designing plans, and it's like, wow, we can make it really too complicated that people are never going to follow through on these particular healthcare plans. And I think we do the same in our faith. That, not only do you have to be, in scripture, but like, you need to be reading a whole chapter a day. Well, what if you just read a couple verses?
Right.
That may be what's reasonable, whether it is because you're a new believer, whether it's because a season of life that you're in. As a mom, as a mom of young kids, at the time, it was like, I don't have 30 minutes to sit down and read the Bible.
Yeah.
Am I not being a good Christian because I don't have 30 minutes of quiet time or whatever it is? Well, no, you take it where you can get it, and apply it as best as you can. So, yeah.
I like that.
Sorry, we kind of we bunny trailed there.
But you bringing up scripture, I guess we can ask then your favorite Bible verse if you have one.
Yeah, I know you asked me that ahead of time, which I appreciated. And so a favorite verse is really hard to me because it's so contingent on what's going on in my life at the time, right? And so I think one of the verses that I have, the one I'm going to share with you though, is one that I remember. I have kind of vivid memories with. I used to struggle with anxiety attacks, and they'll wake up in the middle of the night and your brain starts racing, and all of this. And so that was nothing I had as a kid, and then it kind of manifested and I dealt with it kind of midlife, and it got worse when I was dealing with the death of my mom. And so I would like, my mind would race and I'd have all these thoughts and that kind of thing. And so the verse that stood out to me, was one that came to me in the middle of the night, in the middle of one of those attacks. And it was from Matthew 28:20. And it's Jesus saying, I'm going to read from you, but behold, I am with you always to the end of the age. And it was just that hearing that he will be with me always, even to the end of the age. I mean, so his constant presence with me was like, oh, you're with me always. And that was enough to let me downshift and just recognize the magnitude, that I'm not alone, and that I'm not navigating whatever real issue or whatever issue was in my brain making itself think it was an issue, right? Which anxiety tends to overtake in that way. But just that reminder of his constant presence was an anchor to me. And so that is a verse that has always stood out to me and is a reminder that he's with me and I can lean in and depend on him, and he will lead me. So yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I like that. I like to ask people that because I'm not sure I even mentioned that on here. I find it very interesting. Obviously, it's a big book.
Yes.
And you can pull a lot of different things from it. But seeing how many different things have touched people personally and they use it.
Yeah.
And I think it's just proof that this is a tool for basically anything in life. And you just refer to it as much as you can.
Yes.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Let's see. Encouragement. So another reason why I wanted to bring you on was just kind of like an encouragement, just to others to maybe follow their callings, or just to keep seeking Christ and everything.
Yeah. So a couple pieces of encouragement, I guess, are one, don't disregard the nudges that you sense or that you feel. I was thinking of that as I was coming here, like, okay, what are some things that I would want to share? And I remember that, one of the first times that I actually served in the church, got called in to help out, was this random phone call to ask us to help with the youth group at our church. And I'm like, I'd never been in youth group because I didn't grow up in the church, right? So I'm like, what is this even? And but I was like, I looked at my husband, I'm like, that's really weird that they would call us. Like, how did they get our name? And it's actually quite a funny story, because they didn't actually intend to call us. There was someone else with the same last name in our church that they had originally, but we showed up. We looked at one another and we're like, well, we don't really have anything going on. I guess we'll say yes.
Yeah.
And so we did.
Yeah.
And we found out after that, like, there had been a second person with our last name that we think that that's who they actually meant to call.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those things that we said, we'll just say yes to that.
Yeah.
And so I think really taking time to pray through and think about those times that you feel God is saying, hey, what about you? And because the temptation is to say, no, Lord. And I've done that plenty of times. I'm like, not me. And then gone back to in prayer and been like, oh, okay. I guess, the number of times I've had things just kind of drop, that I hadn't been seeking or looking for or, expecting. And then I said yes. And I'm glad I did, because that yes took me to someplace else and took me to someplace else. But it's a lot of trust, right?
Yeah.
And does have to be done with discernment. But it is an exciting adventure when you're like, here I am, Lord, send me. So
it is. It's like it's being not only courageous but like adventurous and just all those different things. Just surrendering to him completely. It's like scary excited,
It's scary excited. Yeah. And it's an interesting, that trust is, what we talk about, and trusting in God and all of that, but recognizing that he sees things in you that you don't see in yourself. And he knows that you have things in you that you don't have in yourself. And leaning into that. And sometimes it works out great. And other times you just are like, what was that all about?
Yeah.
you
It
know?
was like just a learning
Right. And a lot of
experience.
times you'll kind of shake your head like, what in the world? And then, 3 or 4 experiences down the road, you're like, oh,
See how that prepared
that's how
me.
that all wove in. And I mean, and you might not find out why on this side of heaven, but often he gives glimpses and he's like, yeah, that's why,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah. That makes
and that's
perfect
kind of
sense.
fun.
Yeah,
You
it
get
is.
those little winks of like,
Oh,
that's why.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. But it does sound in your like in that story that God was placing that on you to do the youth group.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, and
and to you, it was like, oh, is this an accident they call this? But it wasn't an
it
accident, was
wasn't. No, it wasn't.
it?
It definitely wasn't. Looking back on it now, like I see that whole journey, um, and it's really quite amazing. But
Mhm.
just how it plugged us in with other things that plugged us in with other
Mhm.
things and led to us being, in a life group, which at the time, we were in a Lutheran church at the time, and they didn't have those. That wasn't a typical thing in the Lutheran church.
Mm.
And, and, then we came here, and that was a catalyst for us to find a church that offered those, because we didn't even realize it back when we were there, like how
Mhm.
special it was, until we moved here and we're like, where's our group? We miss our group, and the church that we had thought we would join was like, we'll never have, I'd love to have groups, but we're not there yet as a church. And we're like, okay.
Yeah.
And so that was a catalyst to us actually going to Cedar Creek, is that they offered the groups
Mm.
experience. And then
Yeah.
over time then I became leading the women's ministry groups, and then it was just
Mm.
it just that little trail
Mhm.
landed me where I was, or
Yeah.
where I am now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
That's so cool. I love your story. I love that it was you, just the fact that you didn't expect to be where you are today. So, unfortunately, there was a technical difficulty with Kelly and I's podcast right at the end there. And so, what you just missed was our prayer together, which was beautiful. Kelly's prayer was very beautiful. She opted to go ahead and do it, and it was just awesome. But I guess, as she said to me, is maybe it was just meant for you and I. And I'm just going to go with that. And I do want to end the actual podcast with a prayer, though. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to go ahead and say a quick prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing Kelly and I together today. She has been a wonderful guest, and actually the first one to meet the day of recording. So it is a blessing that she is here with me, and I really, really am happy about the way our conversation went and all the things that I've learned from her. Lord, please help us as individuals, as humans in your image, to continue to come together and speak on you and love you and show each other what you have done for us in our lives. Although we are not worthy of your grace and your goodness, you love us so much that you still give that to us. And we praise you and we thank you every single day. To all the listeners, I hope that somebody got something from this episode today, and that they continue to stay tuned and spread the word of Jesus. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you.